Hello, everyone. Welcome to The Stars Align with Matthew John, the show where we talk about the stars with the stars. I am so excited for my guest today. I am with Nathaniel Grim.
Yes.
Evan, thank you for coming on the show. I've been looking forward to this all weekend. We are filming live from the Conscious Life Expo 2024 in Los Angeles. It's just been an amazing experience. This was my first time here. Incredible event. It's like a spiritual playground, and it's not even over. We're on day 4. And we're still having fun with it. So, Evan, I saw you on, you were on the lineup like me here at Conscious Life, and I saw your Instagram, and I really like the way that you present astrology to people. You make it very practical. You make it very understandable, recognizable to people that may not, know how to read a natal chart, people that don't know what Chiron is, etc. So, I guess let's start with what is your journey? What has your journey been with astrology?
Yeah, so it's been the ultimate crossover. And thank you, by the way, for hosting this podcast.
Yeah, thank you.
But it's been a truly surreal crossover from the farthest reaches of traditional corporate USA analytical realm all the way over to the spiritual side and trusting my intuition. But I'm a true hybrid. The way I look at the world is never going to be purely one or the other. Not just going to trust my gut. I'm going to look at data, I'm going to look at facts, but also, get out of the program and get out of the matrix. So I feel like I really thread the needle there. And, basically what happened was I was a, corporate guy in Manhattan, just doing my thing.
Okay. Yeah. So you lived in New York as well, right? And, I'm from New York. What brought you to because you're from Minnesota originally, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So long story short, I born and raised in Minneapolis, went to Northwestern in Chicago for college, went through the whole elite university system, followed my friends to New York, and then I got a concussion in 2019 at a nightclub.
Really?
In New York called Pyramid Club, yeah.
You got punched?
No, I just freak accident, knocked heads with my friend. Back of my head, right in the center back. I think it shuffled my pineal gland around a little bit.
Wait, I don't mean to make fun, but that's such an interesting awakening story. So, how did it happen at the club though? What you were dancing?
It's a good question. Yeah, so I'm not even kidding. I went to Pyramid Club every weekend for 5 years straight. I would just go there as a goth, perfect Scorpio place, goth 80s
That's
music.
right. We're both Scorpios, right?
Yes.
Which we're gonna have to talk about.
So the music was just Duran Duran, The Cure, The Smiths, New Order.
I would be into that. Yeah, I would be into that.
So I'd show up in my black leather jacket, black jeans, black boots, and just dance.
Alexis, my assistant, would love it too, right?
So yeah, it was just almost a shamanic experience, I think, and a ritual for me just to dance it out. Whatever energy I was pent up with from my job and my cubicle. And my friend, I don't even know what joke he made, but I was so humored by it that I was just hunched over, laughing my ass off. And as I was coming back up from just heaving and laughing, he was coming down to tell me something more. He had another joke lined up.
Yeah.
But I backed up as he was moving forward, so the back of my head hit his eyebrow bone.
Oh my God.
Which is actually the hardest bone I think on your face.
Yeah.
Right above the eye.
Well, that's how when people headbutt and they actually can TKO someone, right?
Yeah. So my friend who he actually plays hockey. I mean, he's a pretty tough guy.
We were talking about hockey a little bit because we're both big hockey fans. So which is great.
Shout out to the Wild. Yeah.
Let's go Islanders. LGI.
So my friend didn't say a word. He just covered his eye with his hand and left the club, which it's bad at that point.
Yeah. Right.
So for me, it felt like getting hit by a golf ball from 200 yards away or something like that.
Oh my
Just
God.
a real good knock.
And it did something to you spiritually?
Yeah.
Wow.
It did something to me spiritually. So, I woke up with a little bit of blood on my pillow the next morning, but, it wasn't the worst concussion you could get, honestly. I think it was just enough to change something in my brain, but not enough for me to not be able to walk or speak or something.
The joke was so funny that it gave you a concussion and a spiritual awakening.
Yes.
That's a pretty good fucking joke.
Yeah. I just wrote a book about it, actually.
I want to read it. And we'll link your book below in the description box.
Oh, it's in draft mode right now.
Okay, well, when it comes out, let us know.
Yeah.
But what would have been even better is if LMFAO would have been, playing at the club, right?
Yeah.
Well,
That's meta. That's meta. Yeah.
So
although
yeah,
I don't know. I don't know if
not at that club.
LMFAO
That club probably wouldn't. Not the vibe, right?
Yeah. But no, it was a real shock. And the next day, I was at a CBD shop.
Okay.
On the Bowery, in the Lower East Side, and just like looking for something to just relax.
Yeah.
Which CBD does not cure concussions, obviously.
Well, it actually, I think, can help.
It probably helps.
I've looked into concussions myself. I've had them, and we were talking about hockey, and anyone that's played sports, it happens, right? Yeah. And like vitamin C, apparently, which I wish I knew back in the day, but you're supposed to like really load up on vitamin C right after.
Oh,
did you know that?
No.
Yeah.
But I mean, vitamin C is always part of my daily diet, anyways, and I was able to recover pretty quick. But like, what happened was I was at a CBD shop, and they had this other adjacent area of like crystals, which was not really my thing. I collected fossils as a kid, which was cool, but like I was never like a crystals guy. I was never an astrology guy. I was never a spiritual guy per se. But anyways, I saw this crystal. It looked like the Northern Lights, shimmering, sparkling. I was like, what is this? And they were like, that's a labradorite crystal. Okay. And it's like really good for Scorpios to help channel like intuitive power. Yeah. And I was like,
because I know it as the Ascension stone.
Yeah.
Labradorite.
Yeah.
But I didn't know, but I guess that makes sense because really, like, I think us Scorpios are pretty much driving, not to be arrogant, but we kind of are driving the Ascension in a way, right?
Oh, yeah.
Because we're the ones that dig deep and aren't afraid to dig deep, you know? And then, Scorpio is about diving down into the ocean, experiencing the trauma, getting the wisdom from it, pulling it back up, and then spreading it, right?
Yeah, 100%. And so at the time, I only knew that my sun sign was Scorpio, right? Yeah. And I was like, well, that's a curious coincidence, so let me not pay attention to that. It's probably random. And so it wasn't like that immediately led me to astrology, but later that week, I was on the East River in New York because I lived pretty close to the East River. And
you were swimming in it like Kramer.
Yeah.
Right?
I was swimming in something. But,
you funkified my mattress.
I don't remember.
You don't remember that episode?
No. I've only seen, I don't want to tell you how few episodes I've seen, but
you're not, okay, that shows me that you're not a native New Yorker.
No.
You lived in New York, but you're not a native New Yorker.
No.
Because you've not
but I didn't watch
seen
Friends,
every Seinfeld show at least 20 times each.
Yeah. No, but Curb Your Enthusiasm I've seen a lot of.
Yes, yeah.
So we'll compromise on that. But yeah, so I started talking to a tree on the East River a few days later. Okay. This tree just started connecting with me. Yeah. And by talking, I don't mean English, but just connecting with it.
Yeah.
And then about 2 months later, the lockdowns happened.
Oh, wow. It's amazing how recent this was.
Oh, yeah.
Really amazing.
Yeah. So end of 2019, I get the concussion, Saturn return.
I was going to ask what was going on in your chart, but okay.
Yeah, South node on my Neptune. Progressed Mercury went retrograde that month.
It did. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, and on my Uranus.
Wow. That makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
Right.
So freak accident, learning everything, downloading everything really fast.
Yeah. Amazing.
Yeah. So
my Saturn return, I had already awoken spiritually long before that, but it's what moved me from being Matt to Matthew John through trauma, through a lot of trauma.
Yeah,
I became this, right? It started on the Saturn return.
Yeah,
when I went to Brazil to just try to find whatever I was looking for, I didn't even know, and I came back literally a different person.
Wow.
So
wow,
that happens to everyone, doesn't it? On this, in some way.
Yeah.
On the Saturn return, doesn't it? Right.
Yeah, so it's a wake-up call. It's a reality check, and I think it really shows you where you've been led astray. Where you've had the wrong motivations for things, and you're overcommitted somewhere, you're undercommitted somewhere else. And it's a balancing force, and it's a way to alchemize what you're already doing. And so for me, my Saturn return was literally like a smack upside the head, being like,
literally, yeah.
Yeah, and it was like the last like monster party I threw in New York. Like I had like 100 people over at my apartment complex. Like it was nuts because we had a rooftop overlooking Manhattan. It was like gorgeous like view. We kind of combined forces with my neighbor, so we had like hundreds of people, and it was like everyone I'd ever met in New York. Like
I want to go to this party.
It felt like the last party that on Earth. It felt like the last party I would have. It was like a goodbye party.
Yeah.
And somewhere deep in my psyche, I was like, this feels like a goodbye party. And after that concussion, like everything changed for me. Like everything got serious.
You want to hear something weird with me? Like that reminds me. So I told you a little bit. You know, we both have a background in sports a little bit. I was an umpire and a referee, right? I had just before I went to Brazil, I had finally made NCAA in baseball as far as an umpire, right? Which is a huge accomplishment. I had been working for that for years, and I did 2 games, and I just had this intuitive feeling driving through Rochester one night that was it. I was done. I had accomplished. I got to NCAA. I'm done. I didn't know why I was done, but it happened. When I went to Brazil, right, everything changed for me, and when I came back, I knew I had a new career, and I never went back to officiating, right?
Yeah,
Isn't that weird to how we get those little... And we don't fully understand them at the time, but we also kind of do.
Yep.
Like a deeper part of us, the soul, right, kind of knows.
It's like a dormant energy that's always been there.
Right.
And we just cycle back to it because, like, for me, once I got into spirituality, I remembered, oh, yeah, I had dreams on other planets when I was a child. Right.
Yeah.
Like, you know, and that was normal for a child, but then my parents or society or whoever was like, that's like, we shouldn't believe in these things, or we should, you know, that's just your imagination. But yeah, so what happened after that was, you know, a couple months went by where I was just like, honestly, like trying to like internalize the lockdown and like take time to like, I was working on a lot of music at that point, but like starting to enhance my creativity. But it really triggered my journey when I went to LA. So I moved to LA in the summer of 2020 because my ex-girlfriend at the time got into business school out here. So for me, like LA was not chosen. It was just like chosen.
Interesting question. Have you looked into the locational astrology? Yeah. So what is LA for you?
So LA is, so I have Mars, Gemini, Mercury, Sagittarius. So I have a Mars-Mercury opposition exact. And on Aldebaran and Antares, which are like the fixed stars associated with like war, crusade, strategy.
Right.
So LA is on my Mars and Mercury lines. Okay. So I have Mars on the ascendant here, Mercury on the descendant. So like as soon as I moved here, I bought my first astrology book on the Saturn-Jupiter conjunction in December 2020.
Really? Yeah. Wow, okay.
So eventually...
Which book was it?
The Inner Sky by Stephen Forrest.
Yes.
Same first book?
Not my first, but my favorite.
Oh, yeah.
And I have the book of Pluto, the book of the moon. I have like 5 of those books now.
Wow. Yeah, no, it was a really good intro. And Mars, Gemini,
and
on my
we
Mars
should talk about that, by the way. I have one... I don't fully agree with the way he explains that astrology is essentially all the mind, the psyche, right? And that's how it's not this spiritual kind of ethereal magical thing. It's simply describing the psyche, right? Which I disagree with. I think there's something much deeper going on. I think that, you know, when you're born, the snapshot of where the planets are is pretty deterministic of... I think it's a map to the soul's plan. Yeah.
It's an energetic signature and frequency. So, like, if you think about the universe as a series of fractals, infinitely repeating shapes, there's a structure within this universe.
What do you mean infinitely repeating shapes?
So, the universe, I believe, is based on vibration creating matter and creating this like sacred geometry, right? Like in cymatics, you have this idea of like different sound frequencies will create like different patterns and shapes. And so I think there's like a conscious expression that precedes space-time, which is shown through vibration, and that creates the matter. Template? That creates a template, basically. So if you were like peel back,
but almost like a template and then another template.
Yeah. So like when I meditate, I can see that there's sort of like I don't know if it's a dome because I'm still on this journey to figure it out, but there's some kind of geometric, apparatus behind our reality that sort of supports it and undergirds it. And that shape or that structure is basically this as above, so below. It's creating this as above, so below sort of concept, which is like any microscopic thing in the universe could be looked at to infer something bigger about a bigger pattern. So like if you look at the Milky Way, it's shaped like a hurricane, or you look at the electrons going around the nucleus, like the solar system. Similarly,
the Fibonacci sequence, right?
It
is the sequence of a spiral galaxy, and then we also see it everywhere in nature,
snail, right? So with astrology, it's part of this fabric of the cosmos, which is saying, oh,
I love that.
There's a correlation between, it's a correlation, by the way, in my opinion, not causation, but there's a correlation between the planetary positions and our psychological states, but also other things too. So like you're saying, it's not just about our psyche.
Right.
Astrology exists whether or not there's human beings.
Yes, yes. And not only that, like astrology exists on other planets too. It would just be different, right?
Yeah.
So if you go to Venus, if you're on Venus, right? Now Earth is a
Yeah.
planet, right?
Yeah.
That has an influence. And if you're in another star system, maybe you're looking at our solar system, right?
Yep.
And I'm sure, and actually it's interesting. So I channel a group of Syrian extraterrestrials, and one time someone actually asked them through me as a channel if they have astrology on their planet, and they said yes, very much like yours. It's just that we have different stars and different planets that we look at.
Yeah.
But it works just the same.
I have Sirius on my ascendant, so I'm very.
So you're Syrian Starseed.
Yes.
Yes, you definitely are.
Yeah.
I can feel that.
Probably why we're doing
Which
this
is why we're
podcast.
exactly Syrians and Scorpios. Yep, exactly.
But yeah, so I think like I talk about astrologers as ice cream salesmen who predict homicide rates. So like there's that classic correlation case of like, so you sell more ice cream when it's warmer.
Yeah.
And when it's warmer, there's more homicides. But that doesn't mean that ice creams cause murders. But if you were an ice cream salesman on TikTok being like, I'm tracking daily sales data and I have like, I can predict ice cream sales, therefore I can predict homicide rates, everyone would think that that person is a soothsayer, right?
Right.
But it's like they're just using two correlated data points. Similarly in astrology, it's like, you know, Jupiter and Mercury, Jupiter doesn't call Mercury and say like, hey, we're aligned today, so let's be optimistic. It's like Jupiter and Mercury's alignment speaks to some very complex causal chain that leads us to be maybe more, you know, expressive that day or better at selling or persuading someone. So astrology, it's like, I believe the causal link is the fractal patterns of the universe, but it doesn't technically matter. If you're an astrologer and you can channel and you can find these patterns and you're helping heal someone, then you're doing your job. So like to a scientist who's like, you know, how is it possible that planets are affecting us? Obviously with the lunation phase, we know that, you know.
There are a number of studies, for example, about increases in hospital admissions and increases in medical errors when the moon is full.
Yeah.
And even increases in crime.
Yes.
Yeah.
And farmers, right, use a farmer's almanac and they plant crops according to the lunation phase. So, you know, there's obviously effects. And with astrology, it's just like you're saying, it's like everybody has an energetic signature, but I think that that signature carries with you throughout lifetimes. It's not that you would necessarily have the exact same chart, but like when I look at birth charts, now, I hear sounds.
Where in the... Okay, and I want to ask you about that in a second, but when it comes to past lives, right?
Yeah.
We can absolutely find that in the chart, like in this lifetime, which is fascinating.
Yeah.
We can see, okay, in the past lifetimes before this, right? Looking at the nodes, looking at the south node, right? Mm-hmm. Which is so interesting that it's not like, even though we're choosing a completely different date of birth, time, location in each lifetime, there is a track, right? Yeah. So, you know, the soul is going to say, all right, like for me, I'm Aries North Node, you're Aquarius North Node, right? Mm-hmm. So for me, this whole life is about finding my individuality, finding my leadership, finding my courage, right? Mm-hmm. So my soul had to have me born in 86 because of that, right? Because that was had to be written into the chart.
Yeah, we're all balancing out from the polarity points the opposite signs. So like with astrology, it's all about duality, yin and yang, masculine, feminine, positive, negative. And you know, what we do when we balance out is that we do like sort of improve our karma. And I think the goal is to achieve nirvana and escape samsara, which is the cycle of suffering. And so what I work on in my readings is really focusing too, not just on past lives, but like the parental dynamics, because it is also a snapshot of the parents and the family and the grandparents. So it's like your parents gave you an energetic signature vis-a-vis the state of their marriage or their relationship at that time, the state of their emotions, the goals and ambitions they had. So like I'm a fifth house stellium in Scorpio. Both my parents were rock musicians at the time. And the fifth house is stagecraft. Right. So,
house of pleasure, house of fun,
and Scorpio's the shadows, so they were not at the center of the stage or on the side wings of the stage. So you can take astrology as deep as you want. And there's all these astrologers out there, by the way, who don't believe that like you can infer that much about the parents through the chart. But that's why I was here, is I was presenting emerging research that I've discovered through my own reading process, which is to show you that every single planet, every single position in the chart speaks to not just you, but your parents. except for the south.
Every
placement. So Mercury, Mars. Mars will show their motivations. Neptune will show the possibility of addictions or health problems. Pluto. I've actually figured out Pluto moon aspects, hard aspects show adoption somewhere in the family, or like a half sibling or something like that.
Really?
Yeah. And this is stuff that has not, as to my knowledge, been discovered until I came into the scene. So I'm really excited to just like, break this notion that astrology is already set, that we've already figured it all out.
That I agree with. Because even the stuff I do is a bit unconventional.
Yeah.
So first of all, I'm an intuitive astrologer, which is, relatively new, right? I learned astrology backwards. I learned astrology not through books. I learned it just through, I was already doing really in-depth soul plan readings. Yeah. And I just started saying, people were asking me like, how does that play into, my Jupiter conjunct Saturn in the 4th house? Originally I was like, I don't know. And I was like, well, why don't I try to figure it out? And I literally just started backwards learning it and just intuiting it, right? So I look at, for someone's father, Saturn, right? I look at Mars. For someone's mother, I look at the moon. I look at Venus, right? But what you're saying is fascinating, and I want to learn more. Like after this podcast, I want to read and watch your videos, because that's fascinating to hear that actually even like the sun, or even, so it's different aspects of the parental experience can be seen through every.
And they're a karmic mirror, so they're showing you the energy you've inherited too. So like, for example, just really quick, like I have a Mars-Mercury opposition, Mars and Gemini, and my dad raced motorcycles.
Okay. Yeah.
And I am like, with my Mars-Mercury opposition, I use that as being like a very forceful communicator, kind of prone to arguments sometimes, but it all feeds on the same energy.
You're also prone to clonking heads.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, I'm very competitive, but that you can see in the father as well, is like, he was competitive in a certain way with Mars Mercury.
I'm extremely competitive, and it's odd because I'm Mars in Aquarius, which made me a great referee, right? Can you imagine?
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Teams, Aquarius.
Yeah, exactly. No, just being the mediator, right?
Yeah.
But I'm also extremely competitive. I hate losing. I did not like that I did comedy the other night at the talent show, and I killed, and I did not win. So I am extreme. So I can't wait till you look at my chart. I want to see where that like competitive nature comes in.
Yeah. No, I'd love to see it.
So I love you're presenting all of this new technology, we could say, into the. I'm blown away, and I think probably everyone in this community is probably blown away at how quickly you stepped into the scene and made an impact.
Yeah.
Your Instagram is massive. You've got a ton of people that know you by now, but I had no idea that you just woke up kind of like 3.5 years. Like, how did that happen so quickly, and what and why do you think your soul is doing this so quickly?
Yeah, so I have a lot of like fixed stars in my chart. So Sirius on the ascendant, Mars Aldebaran, Mercury and Taurus, Moon is on Alphecca. I have like so much starseed energy that, when I read the books, when I started reading the literature, I was like, I've either written this already, or this is like based on things I've already communicated, or I was already a specialist in this. So in 4 months, from January to April of 2021, I read like 15 astrology books. And the first reading I ever did was on Clubhouse, that app. I don't know if it's still around, honestly.
Yeah. It's still
but I pulled someone aside, and we did a phone call reading. Didn't know anything about this person's life. And I was able to figure out, based on just the knowledge I'd already gained, like at what age her father was in a drunk driving accident. And no prompts about it. I was just I was like, your father was in a drunk driving accident when you were 12. She was like, how do you know that?
Was that Pluto, Uranus, or?
She had Saturn square Mars, both at 12 degrees. And so I figured out you can convert the degrees to age.
Really?
Yeah. I just was like, why don't we just take...
Have you seen other evidence of that?
So the genesis of that theory was through a reading that I did, or that I got. My first reading ever was from Robert Phoenix. He's another astrologer, great astrologer. And he looked at my Chiron degree, and my Chiron was 27 in the first house, 27 degrees. He was like, 27 years old, did you have a lot of health problems? I was like, yeah. He's like, did you have sinus infection? I was like, yeah. First house of the head, Chiron's at 27. But what I did is I took that and I ran.
Chiron was at 27, and you were 27 when you had the issue.
Yeah. So, but he only focused on Chiron in that example. But then I just ran with that theory. I was like, and then the other thing I added to the canon is that I was like, the equation is n plus 30. So you take the degree, you add 30 years, and it happens again. So, and I've proved this in many sessions.
Well,
so
and
like,
hey, that's Saturn cycle, pretty much, right?
And it's basically solar arc direction, except the planet activates at the age associated with that degree. So like, I've had clients with Saturn at 15 degrees in the 8th house. Age 15, father dies. Age 45, you know, another
Divorce.
like authority figure dies.
Oh, okay.
Or Chiron and the moon conjunct at the same degree. Like age 8, they like they have a huge like clash with their mother, they never get over. Age 38, they have a child and heal their maternal relationship. So that's how deep it goes. And
wow, I'm blown away right now because I had never heard this theory ever.
No,
and
yeah.
now I'm so excited to, like, literally, I'm going back upstairs and doing readings this evening, just to play with that, right?
Yeah, and for example, like, so if you have an early degree, right? It's not like so my North Node's at 0, right? It's not like age 0, born, I found my destiny, but
30.
Add 30. Yeah. That's when I bought the first book.
Yeah.
And Jupiter, Saturn were on my North Node at that time. So you can actually find synchronicities between the degree activation.
Saturn being on your North Node that's an intense and rapid awakening.
Yeah.
Or rapid redirection, as you talked about.
Yeah.
A smack across the face, right? Or a clonking together of the heads, right? Yeah. Onto your soul's intended destiny.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. Yeah. And it's like, you know, there is an astrologer who was from the Czech Republic named Nikolaj, I don't remember his last name, but he has a degree theory. So there are other degree theory astrologers, but I haven't read his books, so there may be some overlap between our theories, but like for me, it was just like the numerology.
You know, I don't see why not, because like the more I found, you know, being on this journey, for me, it's been about 15 years in practice, right? And before, it was longer even before that when I woke up. But, you know, I have found that the one consistency, well, a couple consistencies, but one of them is that much more is planned than we think.
Yeah.
And I'm at the point where I think almost everything in our life is predestined, pre-planned, save for the little, you know, am I going to buy, you know, a chicken sandwich or you know, or a turkey sandwich, right? Save that, which even who knows, right? Maybe even that is predestined, right? But I think almost everything is predestined. So to hear this merging of numerology with astrology like this, I am fascinated.
Yeah. And again, like what's so fascinating too is the science of it does not make any sense in the sense that, like, right, the constellations are different sizes in reality. But that's
a great question though, but Western astrology has nothing to do.
Exactly.
It's a template, and it's a perfect template. It's a perfect sphere, circle, right? Yeah. Divided perfectly into 12 equal segments, right?
Yeah, exactly.
With perfect balance between the elements, right, and the nature of them.
And so it's all symbolic, and I think that so my main audience is obviously people who already are on a spiritual quest, but one of the other audiences I try to reach is skeptics. And so I try to appeal.
Really?
I try to appeal to the rational mind in the sense that, like, look, you know, I read the astronomy magazines, like, and I get all of the lingo in it and the terminology, but it's like I, as a Mars Gemini, can hold two truths in my head at the same time. Like, once you become a both and person rather than either or, life makes a lot more sense, right? So, like, you can understand that Pisces is such a bigger constellation than another constellation, but like you're saying, the harmonics of it is almost like necessitating 6 axes on those sort of polar opposites, and within those you divide it into 30 equal degrees. But there's sort of a beautiful,
divide it even further into 3 decans each, right?
Yeah. So there's sort of a symbolic nature to it, where it's like, you know, we're basically articulating natural rhythms.
Exactly, just like with, you know, in Mean Girls, you know, you know, Damien asks Katie, like, you know, why do you like math? Because it's the same in every country, right? Yeah. I think math is the same in the whole universe.
Yeah.
To me, like, what could there be other than the 0 through 9? Now, who knows? Maybe there are realms where there is a difference, right?
Yeah.
But what I was going to say is, like, I think that like 12 seems to be such an important number in the universe.
Yeah.
Like, to me, the universal consciousness is the 12th density. 12, you know, there's 12 main planets, we could say, that we read in astrology, right? The 12 seems to go everywhere, and then the 144, which is 12 squared, right?
Yeah.
So to me, I would imagine that our just the simple circle divided into 12 like that probably is ubiquitous throughout creation.
Well, that's something I've actually been thinking about. Is, the creation theory is. So I believe that we live in a dualistic universe, and it's because it's basically like these two. So if you imagine like two musical notes, sort of like out of tune and then coming together and suddenly being in perfect harmonization and then dispersing again, I think we're at the centrifuge of that perfect harmony, and it's two sounds. But then there's a trialistic universe where you have three factors. There's a quadralistic universe where we have four factors, and universes become increasingly complex. It's like our universe is all based
DMT?
on, and you can draw it by looking at. So I think the universe is actually bubbles colliding. So we operate between these two membranes, but it's only two bubbles in our universe. So it's two opposites. But then if you have three bubbles, you look at the overlap in that Venn diagram, and that universe exists inside of that vesica. Then you add four, and you see that with the increasingly complex mandalas, right? So that's the hologram, that's the geometry behind our reality.
Whoa.
So like when I meditate and I really try to like see through the sky, see through the fabric of our existence, I start to see these shapes come through as like almost like codes.
I'm going to have to watch this back when it's posted and meditate on that, because again, I felt like I was on DMT for a minute, right?
Yeah.
What I've seen, like, and it actually was on an LSD trip that I saw this way back 10, 15 years ago, is that underlying all of creation, it's all triangles. The three.
Yeah.
That everything is 369 essentially.
Yeah. Yeah, no, and I think there's many ways to conceptualize
exactly.
It. But
everyone has like even, and I know this is a little different, but like there are people, and there are people here, I'm sure, that believe the Earth is flat. Believe the Earth is like it's a dome. Like I know it's a sphere, okay? Maybe I don't truly know, but I know as much as I can know anything, right? But then in that person's reality, they're conceptualizing the flat Earth, and they're understanding it in a way that I couldn't, because I am on a sphere. And to me, that's just like a little example metaphor of like, and that's just Earth, but the universe itself, trying to conceptualize and see what it is. And I love, again, I'm going to have to listen back, but.
Well, I mean, if you think about it, right, almost every concept in our reality has an opposite. So like hot and cold, left and right, dark and light, and the way we measure things is on a spectrum of opposites, like Hermeticists teach. But the channel message I got a few months ago was that there are other universes where everything has three factors. And then again, everything has four factors if you're in a quadrality system. And what happens is, like, imagine a universe where there's no such thing as like hot versus cold. There's like three factors of like left hot, right up, and like lukewarm down or something. And it's like our brains can't even process that.
Yeah, but we have that here. Like I go up to my hotel room and I'm waiting 5 minutes for the hot water to come on. I'm at lukewarm. It's a spectrum.
But I'm saying, imagine if again, this is like, we have to kind of just take our brains out of it for a second, like where there is not just a temperature factor, there's like an extra factor. And so you can't talk about hot or cold. You have to talk about like a temperature and a direction at the same time.
Why?
Because it's a trialistic universe. There's more than one factor. So there's no such thing as like there's literally again, just like take your human brain.
Hold on, at your rooftop parties in New York, were you like going off like this?
No,
not yet.
I was philosophical.
Because I could just picture like being at one of Evan's rooftop parties, and just like everyone gathered around, like, whoa, and everyone's passing the joint around.
Yeah.
Like,
no, it was,
bro.
I was just like a corporate bro, I feel like, at that point. super like wearing a sport coat.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's almost like these vectors that come through reality in a different way than our reality. So like everything we know about our universe is based on a very inescapable understanding of opposites, right? So even scientists, right? They think in terms of opposites, and they built the tools that they use to measure.
There's 1 or 0.
Yeah.
How could there be, and I'm just devil's advocate, how could there be anything else? How could there be anything else other than a switch that goes like that? I guess if it's a dial?
No, it's not even like, I don't think we could even visualize it, right? Because it's like, again, in this universe, it's like a meeting of two forces, just like in Star Wars. You know, you have like the light and the dark.
Yeah.
But there's another universe where there's like three, and I believe that the universe is inside of this like symphonic bathtub, by the way. So that's a whole nother thing. But I think like we
So
exist.
you're talking
inside...
about a multiverse with multiple.
Yeah. So there's
universes.
if you had 3 bubbles colliding, that's a different universe than ours. Where again, there's no 1 and 0. It's like 1, 0, and some other concept that exists outside the framework of anything binary. So like binary, there's a universe where binaries aren't possible, I think, or at least they're so rudimentary that they wouldn't even be noticed.
Did this come to? I'm asking this all seriousness. Did this come to you on plant medicine, or in all seriousness? Because I feel like being on plant medicine or DMT or something, maybe, I could conceptualize it better.
Yeah. No, this came in through. I mean, I was alone in Joshua Tree. So you're
on peyote, right?
No, I literally, it's so crazy. I was outside.
I sent someone to Joshua Tree yesterday in a reading. Just intuitively came through. I told them, go to Joshua Tree, do peyote, find the 2nd or 3rd shaman.
Yeah.
Message came through me.
Straight up, I was in this chair in the backyard of my Airbnb, just like looking up at Sirius, the star Sirius.
Yeah.
I found it. And
our,
I was like,
our home.
Yeah. And I just tried to just fixate on the star for like 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Not think about anything.
Love, like, I live out in the country in the Finger Lakes, and I love at night, especially in the wintertime.
Yeah.
Winter, the stars and Sirius is so bright in the winter, right? And I love just like connecting with it, and I start to see the blue planets and the blue people and the oceans and the mer people and
and it's like so I actually recorded my channeled message like an hour long, and what I really feel happened is I was channeling something in from Sirius.
Okay.
But as I was channeling, I started talking about like we the ancients, and I was like looking back, I was like, who are they? And then I started talking about the Emerald Tablets, and I was like, is this like Hermes coming through? Like it felt like very hermetic. What I did realize too is like this modern scientists have like completely bastardized what the universe actually is, which like, and I think that was my screen.
You have to look for indisputable evidence of something in order for it to become a fact, right? So that in itself, it precludes like so many possibilities that at a place like this we discuss openly, right?
Yeah, because the scientists have said that the answer to the universe is 42, just like Terry Pratchett, right? So it's like there's something about the human condition that does not satisfy us, and I think just the fact that
it satisfies only one part of the brain, right?
That in of itself is proof that it's not their answer.
Which is what plant medicine does. It takes us out of that and into the other part, right?
Yeah. So like there's just extrasensory processes that the human mind filters out in a standard.
By the way, next year we're going to refilm this like on peyote.
Let's do it. But I want to see your chart too.
Okay, so you have a fascinating story, right? I know, and I think you know, and I think probably everyone or a lot of people here know, you're going to do big things. You're already doing big things. Why? Why do you think you're meant to be this voice for offering these fascinating new innovations in astrological technology? Not just that, but just the philosophy that you channel through about our star origins and about everything we've been talking about. Yeah. And I know this is a deep question, but I think you'll dig it as a Scorpio. Yeah. Why?
So
why you?
Yeah, I think that I'm meant to help alongside many others, including yourself, to sort of pull out the universal languages that have been dormant in our conscious experience for a long time. So we have music already. We understand sort of the basics of music. We understand math, but astrology for me is like completing that triumvirate. And so my goal is to unify all these different universal languages to, raise vibration. But, I also think part of my mission is to come up with a new language of expression. So there's something about astrology, music, and math in my brain that's all the same. And I think that, again, the way we move through the universe is all based on vibration. Our energetic signatures are just vibrational frequencies. And I feel like we're just kind of like, there's a missing link right now. I don't know if it's like the language we use or the way we communicate, but there's some sort of like, we got to make the song better. like basically, in the way we exchange energy.
Right.
The rhythm of it, and I think in terms of rhythm and sound and vibration, and when I look at charts, I hear sounds. So like I have a synesthesia thing.
Tell me what that is like.
So it's sort of like different genres of music overlapping at the same time. So like when I see like an opposition or a square or whatever, like it'll be a little bit more like a harsh sound.
Yeah.
Discordant sound. When I see a trine or a sextile, it's a bit more,
in opposition though. I mean, I look at oppositions optimistically.
Oh, same.
You know, as a balancing. Yeah.
I mean, I think a square. Yeah, I mean,
a square though.
A square is a little bit more discordant. You're right. Like and a
quincunx, for example.
Yes.
Also,
that's like a flat 5 or something in music.
Which is what? Tell me.
A flat 5 is just like a really, jazzy,
a weird chord.
It's a weird. It can sound cool, but it's just like not.
Okay, I think
like
I know.
A natural.
Not
like
a natural.
You would hear
chord.
it if you heard it out of context. You'd be like, "This is weird."
Okay.
But if you hear it as a transitional chord, it actually is kind of cool. So the inconjunct would be like that sort of like, appendage to the sequence.
I always describe an inconjunct or quincunx as like one planet or object is speaking English, the other speaking German, and they just they have no idea.
Exactly. Right? That's how I think about it. Yeah.
Where a square is more contentious. Oh, what are you doing there? Oh, oh, you want to fight?
No, that's what. Yeah, the opposition is a resolution point in a lot of ways. Yes, I agree with you. There's different natures to the
and a sextile. And a trine you feel is like, or you hear is like a very harmonious,
much softer sound.
Soft,
so it's a sound, and so as soon as I look at a chart, within like 10 seconds, like I can tell the cosmic time on that clock. So like I think about a chart like.
What do you mean the cosmic time?
So like I think about charts as like a clock with 10 hands, and someone asks you what time is it. If you don't know astrology, you're gonna be like, my head's exploding. If you're an intermediate, you're gonna be like, it's 9, 15, 45, 6, whatever.
Yeah.
But a pro looks at a clock with 10 hands and says 7:15 p.m. Or it's almost like a priori knowledge of like you just see the color, you just see the time. So when I look at a chart,
are you talking about you can just look at a chart and immediately get the birth time?
No, I just get the energy of that person.
Okay, gotcha.
I don't have to look at the chart.
And it conceptualizes to you. So do you get everything intuitively just right away from the chart?
I've never looked at a chart before reading.
I don't do that either. I do the same.
Yeah. The idea of like preparing for a reading is just like.
Well, I get why people
I don't understand
do that. That's how it was always done.
Yeah.
Like back in the 60s when my mom was going to an astrologer, it's like, you tell them ahead of time and they take a whole day. That was before computers to map out a chart.
It was a different.
Right? And look through all the affairnesses, right?
Yeah.
And get everything.
Yeah.
But fascinating. Briefly, and I feel like this has been 10 minutes, but people are telling me we're almost an hour here. I'm blown away. Pluto in Aquarius is probably the big news event of this year.
Yeah.
Your perspective.
So anytime Pluto changes signs, it changes the collective urge, the collective unconscious, and I think Pluto in Capricorn has shown us how institutions have failed us and how there's a lot of deceit in our culture, whether it's through advertising, brands lying about their services, governments being corrupt, C-suite executives at companies being corrupt. And so institutional trust is at rock bottom. And so in the wake of that, we, the individuals, have to come together and elevate consciousness. And so Pluto in Aquarius will give us the tools to do that.
Do you believe that we're in the age of Aquarius now?
No.
Same.
So
when will we be in the age of Aquarius? I see it as
about
2043.
100. Well, so technically it's like a 2,160 years with the precession.
Right.
But we don't agree on when the age of Pisces started, number one. Number two, the ages overlap. They're like waves overlapping. So I think
why though? And I feel that completely. But why? Because we know, well, at least the way I go about astrology is you're either in or out of a sign. And you're more exalted in the first degree and the last degree. It's like you want to the planet wants to make a grand entrance and also, make a grand exit and have everyone remember them. I've always found exaltation on the cusp rather than a blending, but houses I find the blend.
Yeah.
Right. So why? First of all, do you believe that, or do you have a different take on that?
No. Yeah. I mean, I think it really depends on the scenario. Like, so I use a whole sign house system at this point. So I use
why? We were going to talk about that.
Yeah. Why? So I think every sign has a relative position to another sign. Well, I guess that's technically correct, right? So like, I have a table in my head, which is like, okay, Virgo is the 7th sign from Pisces. It's the 8th sign from Aquarius. Cancer is the 4th sign from Aries. Capricorn is the 10th sign from Aries. Blah, 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 blah. Mm-hmm. And so because of that, there's an affinity between the houses, the aspects, and the signs. So 180 degrees is similar to the 7th house, is similar to Libra. 120 opening trine is similar to the 5th house and Leo. Right. And so sort of a Hellenistic thing that I borrow from. But because of that, if you have Jupiter at 29 Taurus and you're a Scorpio sun at 0 Scorpio, I still think Jupiter is in a 7th house relationship to your sun sign. Yeah. So the way I do horoscopes, by the way, is completely different from other astrologers. So like, I make accurate predictions based on someone's sun sign, their moon sign, their rising sign, and they mean different things. But what I realized is astrology is actually quite simply just, again, like harmonics, but also like, again, aspects, houses, and signs all share some relation, there are synonyms in some ways. Right. But other people are like...
Similar properties. Like you can, like I like how you have a table in your head, because you could literally create a table like that.
Yeah. Oh yeah, and I want to, because there's misinformation out there.
Which would be very helpful, by the way.
Yeah, there's like a lot of astrologers who say you can only make predictions based on the rising sign, and I've just proven that so many times. Yeah. Because like for example, I'm a Cancer rising, but a Scorpio sun and moon. Yeah. Am I really not going to listen to a Scorpio forecast?
Exactly, right. And for me, like, you know, just Scorpio is my predominant feature. Yeah. You know, in my chart.
Yeah, so if you think about it, Jupiter, Uranus right now in Taurus, that's opposite Scorpio. Okay. And so if you're a Scorpio sun, which is your expression, as part of your identity, again, Jupiter, Uranus in a 7th house aspect to your sun means that relationships are expanding for you. Yeah. Even if you're a Aries rising, like it's not that it doesn't matter what your rising sign is, but like there are multiple layers to the horoscope. So you have your sun horoscope, you have your moon horoscope, you have your Mercury horoscope. You can put any planet on the hypothetical ascendant and recalibrate the houses.
Yeah. Let's look at, while we're talking, let's look at your chart and then we'll look at mine. Yeah. I was wondering where this, all of this very methodical energy comes in, and it's you know, the Capricorn stellium for you, right?
I think it's my Mars Gemini.
You think it's the Mars Gemini?
Yeah.
I think it's both.
Maybe both.
You know?
Yeah.
And you know, the Mars Gemini being retrograde, right? It really makes you look back into the history books, essentially, right?
Oh, yeah.
You want to understand the progression of like the art of astrology, so you can innovate it further.
Yeah,
right?
And I was born with Mars rising above the horizon at night. It was bright, almost in an opposition at that point.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. And this is in the Placid system, right? And I know you use whole sign, but it's the same. But to have that 5th house stellium right there, I mean, look, I can see the rock and roll guy, the music guy, right? The sports guy, the party on the rooftop guy, right? Which is great because, like, sometimes people are surprised, like me, like, oh, you, like, why are you always talking about hockey? It's like, man, I got to ground myself. Like, that's what I love. Like, I love hockey. I love music. I love the earthly stuff, right? And I can see that with you as well, which is so fat. And this I love, like to have your North Node in Placidus literally on the 8th house cusp. Yeah. Which is like, to me, like in this case, that exalts it. And also we could say it exalts it, but also, you know, having it fall in both the 8th and the 9th. So we're merging, right? The digging and the understanding, the depth of everything with the philosophy aspect and putting it out there, and also the travel aspect of like going around the world, you know, both physically and also through the airwaves like this and speaking about this stuff, right? Yeah. Amazing. And to have your part of fortune conjunct
Chiron.
Right. Conjunct Chiron, right? Conjunct the South Node right there. It tells me you were a philosopher in a past life, like a prominent philosopher. To me, it was in ancient Greece. I don't know if you ever picked that up about yourself, but I get a vision right now that you were writing and recording and actually speaking and actually having meetings with other prominent philosophers at the time. I think that energy is recurring now because you speak as a philosopher. To me, you speak more as a philosopher than as an astrologer. Yeah. And you're merging the two.
I agree. I think that's a great reading.
Cool. Yeah. All right, let's look at mine.
Yeah.
Again, this is a little different, but having an astrologer on, I got to let them look at my chart, and he's going to use whole signs.
Yeah. So.
And I'll put it up here.
Yeah, what I love about the chart is the deep intuition you have. You know, being a Leo rising, right? Like any Google search will be like charismatic.
But I am though.
Which you are. But I think there's something more going on here, right?
Oh yeah.
Which is, you know, looking at the chart ruler, the Sun in Scorpio conjunct Pluto.
Yeah.
In the 4th, like that's drawing up so much intensity from this like really deep ancestral well.
Yeah.
So it's like you've got generations of seekers and seers and mystics.
Definitely.
Right?
Definitely. Yeah. On my mom's side, especially. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
And, you know, with Jupiter and Pisces, you know, in its home sign in the 8th house, you're drawing in this intuition like so quickly.
Yeah.
And it's very compassionate.
I work like that. And I follow my intuition so like blindly sometimes, but it always works out when I do, you know?
No, this is the chart of an intuitive healer, and like Virgo moon, Jupiter and Pisces, like this is all about selfless service, right?
Yeah. Oh my God.
And so
sometimes I feel like a martyr almost because I'm always being of service, and I gotta like sometimes remember to make space for myself. But
absolutely,
that's like I'm so obsessed with being of service.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Mars in Aquarius is like you're trying to do that and put energy into like a whole team of people, a whole group of people, and saying like, okay, how can I elevate your awareness and help you all out? And so it's almost
I love teaching in groups more than anything.
Yeah.
Groups and doing talks like this, like doing retreats, bring as many people together.
Absolutely. And then Saturn, Uranus in the 5th, just like that's where you're like building and manifesting in the long run is with Saturn, right? And so Saturn the 5th is like, I'm trying to like embody and manifest this like creative power as like, and create something like very, you know, so you have Saturn on in Taurus basically, right?
Yeah.
So you may have a background in a past life as some type of religious or spiritual teacher.
Yeah, I think so.
And Saturn square Jupiter is like, let's really master some sort of like knowledge.
You know what happened though in that life? I think I abused my power. You know, I think I have such an ick and like for these like gurus that I know behind the scenes, they're just basically in it to fuck the females, like in their cult or whatever. And I've had so many clients over the years that have got broken away from cults, and they find me because they know I'm the real deal, and they know that I am so cognizant of not abusing power because I did that when I was a spiritual teacher in another life.
See, this is what's interesting about your chart is like all the Scorpio energy. Scorpio is about power, right? With Pluto, so there is that. There's the temptation to attain power.
Oh yeah.
But then the Virgo.
Oh yeah, I got to be careful. That's what I'm saying.
That Virgo moon Jupiter Pisces is basically like a buffer against that. And it's saying like, okay, but like, how do my actions affect, you know, those experiences of others? And noticing as Scorpio too, the pain in others and like why they're suffering and how they're suffering. It's almost like
extreme empathy.
Yeah. And so you have the blueprints to basically help someone break through this dark tunnel that they're in. And, you know, again, like Saturn Uranus in the 5th is so ambitious about different ways to creatively explain things. Because Saturn in the 5th is like, I'm going to make learning fun. I'm going to make this topic fun.
And like, dude, I make people laugh like in my talks constantly.
Oh yeah,
and that's why they're drawn to me because I make it fun.
Yeah, you got to incorporate comedy into all
I do, yeah. Oh my God.
I think you're living out your chart.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Dude, that was an amazing reading, Evan. Thank you so much, man.
Thank you for reading my chart.
And this was just so much fun. Evan, where can people find you?
So I'm on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. My website is evannathanielgrim.com.
I'll put all the links below. Awesome. And anything exciting that's coming up soon?
Yeah, I have a class on relationships coming up in March.
Okay.
I have a retreat in Norway in July.
Why Norway? That's cool.
I want to reconnect with the Norse gods and my Scandinavian roots.
Yeah. And a past life. I get a vision you were reading runes in a past life.
How did you know I was watching them? I was learning about that today. I just bought 2 books about runes.
You're going to pick it up like that.
Yeah.
Like within a day.
Those symbols like actually mean more to me than like the alphabet.
That was a past life. Yeah. Dude, amazing.
Yeah.
This was so much fun. We could go on for hours. Again, this felt to me like 20 minutes and it was an hour.
I'm
was
blown away
amazing.
too.
It was amazing. Evan, thank you so much for being on the Stars Align.
Yeah.
And thank you everyone for watching. We'll see you next time.